when you're building a startup, you're going anti-gravity. Basically, you are opposing something that exists. You should be ready to handle unexpected things.
You have to stay put for a long time. You have to keep doing same boring things every day, every week, every month. The staying put for a long time is the only way to grow.
First of all, people need to understand very basic who is the customer and what is the problem of the customer you're trying to solve. Then comes, do you have a way to solve it in a efficient manner where you can make money?
If you don't mind the pain, then it's very rewarding. You will solve problems for billions of people. You will get rewarded for it very well. And the change that you will bring about will be quite significant.
So I'm now going to do an introduction. So I don't think the panel needs any introductions. But I think what we're going to spend time doing today is, since we have 24 minutes and the clock is ticking, try to get as much out of the stellar experience in fintech that's on the panel today. It's my honor to welcome everybody. And I'll start with VSS sir. I think it's been quite a crazy journey. I think the past couple of years seems like a decade maybe. But I think there are a lot of young entrepreneurs here who are really wanting to be founding startups, building ideas. I think everybody knows that nothing really comes on day one, but for a founder, it's always 0 or 1. How do they really navigate some of these things in terms of being mentally strong?
And are we talking in the intersection of fintech or the whole horizontal?
We can talk specifically about fintech given all the regulatory overheads and everything else.
Yeah, because especially for fintech, there is a regulator extra variable beyond other startups. First of all, thank you so much. Cheers to the host, first of all. Cheers, DPIT team. So it's very, very clear that when you're building a startup, you're going anti-gravity. Basically, you are opposing something that exists. You're not satisfied with something that exists and you are the first customer of it. And that is how the genesis of startup goes. Now, the very fact that you are up against the current norm or current structure means that you're going to have huge resistance to customer, huge resistance to the current ecosystem and so on. So entrepreneurs, each of them here and you included, all of us have to handle huge amount of pressure like an everyday thing. So first of all, if you are like a fainted heart that this happened and what will I do, then this is not for you. And that is also the sequencing of, what remains in the end kind of thing. And it is very tough to remain the last two startups. This is a slang I'm using, that there are of 100, only 2 survive in the end. Now, net, it is number one, that you should be ready to handle unexpected things, and none of this is expected because you will more or less be in the domain and expertise which is may or may not be yours, and the problems that you will handle will be the ones that team cannot handle, which simply means that you are supposed to handle stress like no other, and that should be your back-end skill, if you will. So that is, in my opinion, the first skill. And second is that you have to have an audacious ambition of changing something or other that exists today as a contemporary. Whether you're talking about fintechs or whether you're talking about generic consumer products. I love my food delivery companies, just in case, because they change the way the food gets delivered, and I want that to be like, it takes a lot to do that.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. I think Jitendra probably agrees with you, because I was watching a couple of his talks, in preparation for this panel, I think. And, he talks about why he's becoming a founder, because I think after CitrusPay, he had a lot of options. I think he could have become an investor also. But he said that was easy. So, he said, I'd like tough jobs and I want to do tough things. So I think he's here building Jupiter. So I wanted to ask, what does it really take to become a founder? Because I know, like VSS sir said, I think you have to expect the unexpected in most cases, especially in fintech, given the regulatory overarching, say, bunch of stipulations also. But how do you really kind of make up your mind, and what do you really look forward to when you're building, say, in neobanking? Because, for example, nobody really did a lot of stuff in neobanking when you started. Obviously, once you started, a lot of other people who came in. But how did you really start? Where did the idea really come from?
Yeah, so, having done payments in CitrusPay and did bit of lending during my PayU days through the Pay Later product in LazyPay. Frankly, the realization was that the payments and lending consumers were looking very, very transactionally, and they were optimizing it for point in time. And fintech is all about payments and lending. I want to sort of caveat that. That being said, that was the realization, and I said, you have to sort of gravitate towards the offering which is more relationship driven with the consumer. And this is where, if you look at it, the banking is the most relationship driven offering towards the consumer. And that's how we got into the neo banking as a sector. Not sure whether I would say that that was the wisest of the decision. Frankly, it's tough. It's very tough to build in this sector, because rather you are asking consumer to trust you without having any brand, and you're asking consumers to park their money with you, which is like a toughest thing in the Indian market or anywhere in the world for that matter. So it's a business where you have to stay put for a long time. You have to keep doing same boring things every day, every week, every month, without having any immediate gratification of the outcome from the business within the same moment. So my advice to anyone who is getting into especially fintech is that staying put for a long time is the only way to grow in these kind of businesses. And you need to have that cockroach mentality that come what may, you will stay put.
I'll ask a question to Sachin. Do you guys know this? This country's first $1 billion check for any startup was written for Sachin Bansal's company. So he truly revolutionized the way we could think about what startups are. Now that he's here as a fintech founder, I have a question which is more or less in the same spirit. It was unplanned, but the question could be, you've been a technology entrepreneur, did the retail. Now you are a fintech entrepreneur. How different and difficult it is, or easy it is?
Yeah, no, it's a very different ball game altogether. What I've realized over time, and of course, it was not something that I was completely unexpected. Fintech space, I think, in most industries, you worry mostly about customers, competition, investors, employees, and all of that, right? So, in some order of importance that you have for your own situation. But in fintech, regulator becomes extremely important stakeholder when you have to think about on a daily basis. And in fact, to a certain extent, sometimes depending on the situations or depending on how the wave is kind of flowing, they can become sometimes the most important stakeholder in the equation, at the detriment of sometimes customers and employees and so on and so forth. Right. So I think if the regulations are changing very quickly, which has been the case in India the last couple of years with all the regulators, you will be. I mean, new stuff will come at you at very, very fast speed, and you have to just constantly deal with it. Right? It's like getting punched in a boxing ring, and then you have to get up, collect yourself, and keep going. In some ways, right? So it happens. So I think, but the fact is that okay, that was on the setting that all aside, right? The fact is that these are huge problems to be solved, which means essentially there are huge opportunities available in the space. If you, as you said, right, Vijay, that if you don't mind it, essentially, then if you don't mind the pain, then it's very rewarding. You will solve problems for billions of people. You will get rewarded for it very well, and the change that you will bring about will be quite significant. I think that's a good part of it. But yes, it does require dealing with this. I mean, any startup, whether you are a small manufacturing unit somewhere in, let's say, Jaipur, to you are building a large tech-driven company serving global people or Indian people at large scale, any business is running it is painful, right? So new stuff happens every day at very fast speed. But in the fintech space, the level goes up a little bit here, I think.
Oh, very interesting. I'll take this for Alok also because I know him.
Sorry, I have one follow-up for Sachin. I think when Sachin started Navi, I think he was talking about unfinished business. So I think it's been a couple of years now. So what is that unfinished business? I'm sure the media folks are watching out. They want to cover it for sure.
Yeah, I think Vijay and I talked quite extensively after I exited Flipkart, and he jokingly said that you are the most unhappiest billionaire I've ever seen, or somebody who has $1 billion exit I've ever seen. I think I was extremely unhappy after the exit because it was not something that I had planned. I think it just happened. So essentially, that's the unfinished business where the goal was to take the platform that I had created or helped create to 1 billion people eventually, right? To serve 1 billion people at large scale, even globally over time. That was kind of the unfinished business that I am still pursuing.
Awesome. Alok, you're the most legendary fintech founder for all of us because you have the most successful company. It makes money, it has a market cap, it has customer base, and it is dominating like no one. What is the secret of your handling of different stakeholders and being an entrepreneur like that?
See, shareholders, I'll come separately, maybe. But, because you asked about regulators and fintech, the way I would like everyone to think about it, they have equal seating on the table. You consider them to be another CXO on the table, basically. So if you have 4 CXOs, regulator and the government is another CXO in fintech business, and you have to give them that much space. That's the way to sort of adjust mentally to it. Because the influence they can have on your business can be very drastic and can be sometimes unpredictable. In our case, somehow we were able to sort of predict because we were engaging quite a lot with them. So we were always ready before some major change happened. But it can be very, very, very tough to manage if you're not prepared. Now, shareholders, you and I, we both got listed around the same time within almost, I think, a week's time. So our journey would be very, very similar. Public markets obviously are very different to manage compared to private markets from the shareholder perspective. You get maybe an hour every quarter at the most. The discussions are mostly quite shallow in the first few meetings. For them to appreciate what happens in our companies, especially given the Indian context, sometimes it's not as easy because a lot of these investors do not have that much India exposure. So it takes a lot of effort, continuous interactions. My guess is every quarter I would be having between 200 to 500 investor meetings even today. So, it takes a lot and lot of effort to make them understand what you do and why you have a right to win. See, practically from founders' perspective, I don't know how many people here want to be founders or are founders. It is actually a 0-1 game. And if you're willing to put 5, 10 years, 20 years of your life into something, uski koi value kaise karega, right? Whether your value is company की 20 करोड़ करेगी 200 करोड़ करे आपकी जिंदगी की वैल्यू हो रही है ना वो तो यार फाउंडर के लिए तो 0-1 ही होता है एंड इट्स वेरी वेरी टफ फॉर नॉन फाउंडर्स टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट पार्ट.
आलोक, आपने बोला आप 400-500 मीटिंग क्वार्टरली करते हो. मोस्टली जो कॉमन फाउंडर है वो सोच रहा होगा आपकी तो फंडिंग हो गई, प्रॉफिट बनाते हो, लिस्टिंग हो गई, अब कितनी मीटिंग क्यों करते हो? ऐसा क्या सीक्रेट है कि आपको इतने इन्वेस्टर से मिलना पड़ता है, पैसे फिर से रेस कर रहे?
नहीं, हमारे केस में क्या है ना विजय, स्पेसिफिकली आई कैन टॉक अबाउट पॉलिसी बाजार. दिस इज अ बिजनेस व्हिच इज नॉट देयर इन दिस फॉर्म इन एनी अदर कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड. सो इफ यू टॉक टू इन्वेस्टर दे डोंट गेट इट. व्हाई डू यू एग्जिस्ट?
लेकिन आपको तो पैसे रेस करने नहीं है, फिर क्यों बात करने पड़ती है?
यार आज नहीं करने ना. सेकेंडली, सी शेयर प्राइस कैसे चलता है मार्केट में? शेयर प्राइस चलता है सप्लाई और डिमांड पे. If our investors or potential investors do not understand us, whenever the supply comes, demand कहाँ से आएगी? So you have to always ensure कि demand side पे प्रेशर बना रहे ना.
तो मतलब सब कुछ सक्सेसफुल होने के बावजूद इन्वेस्टर की क्यू तो लगानी पड़ेगी.
यार I don't mind talking to investors and explaining our business. अगर मैं नहीं बताऊंगा तो कौन बताएगा मेरे बिजनेस के बारे में?
400-500 मीटिंग बहुत होती हैं.
We are lucky to have a full-fledged working CEO for Policy Bazaar, Paisa Bazaar. So we have that bandwidth. And we are focusing on what the business can look like after 10-20 years.
प्राइवेट में मुझे नहीं लगता सचिन और हम लोग प्राइवेट में 400-500 मीटिंग करते होंगे. वैसे मैं सीक्रेट बताना चाहता हूँ, लिस्टेड कंपनी इतनी मीटिंग करती है तो हमारे यहाँ भी ऐसी मीटिंग होती है और मैं भी करता हूँ. तो मैं ये इंटेंशन इसलिए सामने लाना चाह रहा था. लॉट ऑफ अस अज्यूम, देखो अर्ली डेज हैं, थोड़ा प्रेशर होगा, टेंशन होगा, बाद में सब कुछ सही हो जाएगा, बाद में और ज्यादा ग्राइंडिंग हो जाएगा. भाई आपको as they say, it doesn't get lesser, you get better in handling. That is what the secret is.
नहीं देखिए, अभी if we look at
सचिन, आपको 400-500 मीटिंग प्राइवेट में तो नहीं करनी पड़ रही?
कभी
no way.
कितनी मीटिंग कर रहे हो आजकल?
I mean, 400-500 over a 10-year period maybe. That would be the.
और इनके पास तो इन्वेस्टर क्यों करके आते हैं? आप मीटिंग देते नहीं हो.
इन्वेस्टर ही नहीं.
मीटिंग देते ही नहीं हो. अगला क्वेश्चन.
Yes, yes. No, I have one follow for Alok for some of the larger market stuff that people want to follow. Somebody who's building in insurance in India, I think you had early signals around car insurances where you started, and I think everybody here speaks about surviving. I think you keep talking about surviving as a founder also. Those early days. So somebody who's starting up in India today in insurance, with everybody talking about penetration and whatnot, what do you give them an advice on for starting up in insurance?
या कुछ ऐसा होता तो मैं खुद नहीं कर रहा होता. But anyways, not joking about it. See, first of all, people need to understand very basic who is the customer and what is the problem of the customer you're trying to solve. Then comes, do you have a way to solve it in a efficient manner where you can make money, right? Our philosophy has been we'll never lose direct. We'll always cover our direct cost, always, right? Somewhere we were a bit mission driven because early on, within first 2-3 months of the company, I think we chose social security for middle class as the sort of our agenda of the company. So today also we talk about 4 things: risk of dying very early, which is term insurance; risk of dying very late, which is pensions; healthcare cost; and child cost planning. Now for any middle class, these are the 4 main things you have to think about. And if I'm able to do a job where I can give you options in these 4, business to bani jayega na.
Right,
But you have to stay true to the cause.
Yeah, makes sense. I think next one for VSS sir. If anybody wants to ask him a question, I think we can. But I have a question on people who are really building financial services in India. Is listing a moat for all of them? Should they think about listing when they even starting out? Maybe it's too early for them, but should they have it at the back of their mind?
ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन है. जिरोधा से है भाई.
I had a question for Jitendra.
ये
and
सवाल
Sachin.
आपसे है.
I know.
लिस्टिंग या नहीं लिस्टिंग, बस शादी आप करो, हमसे क्यों पूछ रहे हो? आपने शादी क्यों नहीं करी अभी तक?
I'm-
लिस्टिंग क्यों नहीं करी?
So I think Nitin's very sure that and he doesn't want to raise external capital. And I think even in terms of listing,
So ये क्वेश्चन क्या है फिर? मोट उसकी मोट नहीं है ये.
no, I think as a
तो ये
broker,
आपको मालूम है?
no, as
ये
a
ट्रिक क्वेश्चन है मेरे से.
as a stockbroker, I think visibility in terms of P&Ls and that transparency, or at least that long-term visibility, is very difficult to give. At least Nitin's view is that, and I think.
अभी भी डरा रहे हमारे बिजनेस में आओ मत.
But I think
No, USP or moat. I think access to capital can be a moat. Public or private, I don't think there is a differentiation. In other words, thinking that public listing is a moat or being private is a moat, I think in maturity, in the long term,
Yeah.
all companies, in my opinion,
No, I think access to capital definitely is a
moat.
right? But if you don't need the capital, like in the case of Zerodha, then it doesn't matter.
Then listing doesn't matter.
So, at the end of the day, investors are for capital,
Right.
So you have to think about them. It's
And-
a
and-
supply of capital.
And access to capital of the size of capital. For example, like I think Flipkart was able to raise billions in private.
Private, yeah.
And at that point of time, even public market would have not given private
Correct,
capital.
yeah.
So the need is the capital.
Right.
The method could be any. And if you don't need, then you don't list.
I got it. And in terms of neobanking, I think are there signals today that you feel that people should pick up on?
मैं regulator कुछ neo banking जानता नहीं है ना. मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ, what is your...
यहाँ पे फॉर्चुनेटली कोई रेगुलेटर है नहीं अभी.
नहीं, ये वीडियो बन के जाएगा.
No, they're around. No, but I think in terms of how you really built out Jupiter, it's quite fascinating. I think, obviously a lot of early team members would have put in a lot of hard work in terms of finding out those customer signals, right? How did you really go about it? Because I think everybody really thinks these ideas fall out from the sky. I think there's a lot of research that goes into some of these.
So I would say we're still putting a lot more hard work than before. So it's actually very tough. Frankly, getting first 100,000 consumers is way easier. And all of the people on the panel can vouch for that. But getting to million to 10 million to 20 million is like way tougher. So we are somewhere right now in between like 2 to 10 bracket. We are stuck there, and we are sort of have to do more hard work to get more customers, because the scraping the surface is always easier. But I think as I said, like the banking business is all about trust, and the trust gets built over time. You cannot buy trust. You cannot buy trust by throwing money at the consumer or saying that I'm better, so trust me. Nobody trusts you by you proclaiming yourself being better. So for us, the trick is keep doing better service, keep giving better experiences to the consumers, And like in any other fintech business, the trick is hook on the consumer to a particular product, and then try to hook on the consumer to more products from the same proposition. So that's the only way to win the consumer trust, and over a period of time, you end up getting more and more revenue from the customers. So there's no other secret sauce.
So trust, product, but I think Sachin, you've spoken about technology. So what are you focusing on over the next 5 years, 5-6 years?
So the next 5 to 6 years are going to look very different from the last 20 years. I think one big thing that is coming to all of us is AI, and how we use that to...
Do you want to give one example of how AI has changed Navi over the past year?
Yeah, I think there are a few examples of that. I think most of our customer support is automated through Gen AI. In a lot of other operational areas, quality control, etc., there is a lot of usage of AI. I see people every day answering questions through AI. I mean, getting answers to questions through AI. Like, for example, if you wanted to know what are the trends of payments ecosystem trending in Brazil over the last 10 years, so that you can take some decisions based on that in India, and that's an important input to your decision making here. Yeah. Earlier, it was impossible to find that. I mean, or very hard. You have to spend hours, or you have to commission a study. Now you can do research like that and get a decent quality answer from without doing all of that work. Apart from that, I think coding, software engineering is going to get automated quite significantly. That's a big kind of tsunami, I think, that is coming to all of us. I mean, close to 25-30% of our code is already automated. But yeah, over time, I think it'll be
quite real. I think I think it's across the board. But I think, Alok, one follow up on what you mentioned about customers, Indian customers and their behavior with insurance. I think all of us are also suspects and victims of that. But how does an Indian customer really look at insurance? Because I think because there is trust, there is also this delayed gratification with insurance, right? Because you don't really know you need insurance unless you really come across that situation. So how does one really actually buy insurance? What is that journey like, and how will that evolve? Because more and more people are getting educated, more and more people are getting aware. But why is that penetration not going up even though there is awareness today?
So two parts. I think one, the product itself is very unique, as you rightly said. No instant gratification. It is forcing you to spend 1 hour thinking about what can go wrong in your life.
Right.
And somewhere we all think that जो होगा किसी और को होगा, मुझे नहीं होगा, मैं तो healthy हूँ, मैं तो ठीक हूँ. Especially at a young age, you don't really worry too much about those things unless you see someone in your vicinity, कोई friend, family, colleague going through some bad experience and suddenly it strikes, यार ये तो important है. Now, luckily, whenever that person is thinking ये important है, they come to us. So I can hand on heart say 100% of the people in India, when they think they have to buy insurance, will come to Policy Bazaar on their own. But this is something they'll forget after 3-4 weeks again. वो 3-4 हफ्ते ही होते हैं जिसमें आदमी के दिमाग में रहता है and he wants to buy at that time. And that's the time transactions can happen or cannot happen. So you do whatever you have to do. The biggest challenge today, if you look at just the middle class India, which arguably is about 8 to 10 crore households or maybe 35 to 40 crore individuals. The penetration for term insurance is about 6% in household terms, and in life terms, health is maybe about 10% or 12%. So why other people are not buying? Because, as I said, one lot of time awareness नहीं है कि लेने की जरूरत है, या awareness है तो आदमी कहते हैं claim तो मिलेगा नहीं, या मिलेगा तो बहुत painful तरीके से मिलेगा. So if you don't have the trust in the claim process, why should you put money today? तो वो जब तक सॉल्व नहीं करेगी इंडस्ट्री तब तक कुछ नहीं हो सकता है. बट दैट्स लाइक टू ऐड टू व्हाट सचिन वाज आल्सो सेइंग अबाउट एआई. देखो, हम सब जितने भी काम करेंगे ना, किसी भी कंपनी में कोई भी काम करोगे आप जिंदगी में, यू कैन ओनली इन्फ्लुएंस 3 थिंग्स इन एनी कंपनी. या तो रेवेन्यू बढ़ाओगे, या कॉस्ट कम करोगे, एफिशिएंसी लाओगे, या सर्विस अच्छी करोगे कस्टमर के लिए. इसके अलावा किसी का कोई काम होता नहीं कंपनी के अंदर. ये 3 ही काम होते हैं. एंड एआई विल हैव अ वेरी हाई इम्पैक्ट ऑन द सर्विस ऑन डे 1. धीरे धीरे कॉस्ट एफिशिएंसी पे भी आ रहा है. रेवेन्यू इम्पैक्ट अभी इतना नहीं आ पाया है, थोड़ा फ्रॉड कंट्रोल वगैरह आ रहा है फिनटेक में, बट रेवेन्यू साइड अभी दूर है. बट सर्विस विल गेट ऑटोमेटेड वेरी वेरी फास्ट. एफिशिएंसी विल स्टार्ट टू कम इन ऑल्सो इन नेक्स्ट 5 years इन अ बिग वे. तो कभी ना कभी रेवेन्यू भी आएगा.
Got it. So I think we have a minute. I'm only going to ask one question to all of you. Same question. I know all of you have had amazing these journeys. I think everybody kind of glorifies this journey, but I'm sure there have been tough times where people have supported you. So if all of you can name one person, or say, anybody, a close family, friend, whoever, who supported you during those tough times, I'm sure you'd want to kind of give them that visibility also. So if you want to take a few seconds and probably talk about anybody who's helped you during those tough times.
I call Ravi Adusumali, who's an Elevation Capital investor, as my co-founder, and I call him for the single reason that it truly is that I have true privilege of calling him as my friend, my board member, my shareholder, and the person I reach up to. So always, anytime, high time, low time, every time.
I think Jitendra believes in this, that you definitely need a co-founder. I've heard him say it multiple times. So who is it?
Yeah, so I have two people in my life who support me whenever I am in doubt. So one is my wife, of course.
Are you forced to say it? Yeah?
No, not. Well, that's a reality. So, and the second person is Amrish, Pine Lab CEO. So we were co-founders in Citrus, and the journey was so good that we went through so much tough times during Citrus days. So generally the bonding tends to happen, and then we sort of understand the decision-making framework of each other. So it's easier to consult that way.
Right. Sachin?
Yeah, so I learned business very early in my life. Essentially, I come from a business family, and like not big businesses, small businesses based in Punjab, Chandigarh. And one of my uncles, who was my father's elder brother, he was a big influence on me. I think I learned about work ethic, integrity, and responsibility from him, which I think stayed with me for quite a bit. Of course, he's now no more, but his influence stays on in the whole family, actually, quite a bit.
Alok?
I think the first name I would like to say, actually, Yashish, my co-founder. Personally, we are chalk and cheese, very, very different personalities, very, very different outlook for everything that we do. But we are joined at the hip for 17 years, 18 years now. So it worked out very well for us. And outside of two of us, maybe then it's Sanjeev Bigchandani from InfoEd. He was the first person to put in the check. And today also for a lot of things, we reach out to him for advice. And we have learned a lot directly and indirectly both. Sometimes his actions have how he's built Naukri and how he's built the team and culture there has influenced us. So yeah, these two people maybe.
So one final question. Sachin, Jiten, any plans of listing anytime soon, joining the other two stalwarts in the public markets?
At least for me personally, very far away. So I don't think so. I have any aspiration to come close to Vijay.
In public market, nobody is close or far.
So for us, we have reached a stage where actually we have like 20 million users monthly active, 40 million ever used on the platform. It's gone to a very decent stage. Now we are at a place where we can use more capital. And I think public markets is the best source of capital. That's what I believe. If you can handle the pain or what comes with it. I think so. Definitely, the plan is to go FY26. Ideally, we would like to be IPO'd if we can.
So there we go. I think people at the back, I think they're all recording. So I think we're good to go. I think thank you so much, everybody.